Morning YouTube, Parson Rick here. This is my VR for Smokey Dan. He wants us to read something while smoking our pipe. And dearly love reading, and I thank you for this. It's very appropriate. I had a horrible time selecting something to read. So, hope you enjoy it.
Parson Rick, I'm back. My whole life I've been a voracious reader. I could read quite well by the time I was 4. We lived out in the country. We only had one channel. It wasn't very interesting, and it was mostly in a snowstorm. And my mom and my grandfather, her father, really read quite a bit. And my grandpa and I spent a lot of time together, and I always remember him sitting by the fireplace in his chair next to his library, and I would sit across the room being quiet and reading my books. Grew up reading comic books, learned to associate words with pictures, and I just love it. So as a result, I have lots and 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 lots of favorite books and favorite stories. Many of them I quote all the time. And generally my favorite book, besides the Bible, you know, gotta get that check mark in there. My favorite book is the one I haven't read yet. And I just picked this one up a while ago. Is Tales of the Oregon Cascades, and it's written by a guy who was like the first river guide and wilderness guide up the McKenzie. And today I was looking for something, a little story to regale you with, and I was looking up. I remember my grandma, who was Cherokee Choctaw. She would tell me stories of the owl and the alligator and all the First Nations stories from the Southwest, the bayou country and swamp country. And I was looking at some of those and tons of them. I was going to read you the story, the Choctaw story on the creation of tobacco. But in a nutshell, here's what it is. This guy and this girl fell in love, and they went out and entertained themselves in the forest. A little while later, many days later, the young man goes back to that spot, and lo and behold, in that very spot, this plant was growing. And he kept going back to that spot, and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and soon he started picking the dry leaves off of them and throwing them in the fire. And he really liked the smell. And then he began to cultivate the tobacco plant. The tobacco plant in that story is a little leftover love. Kind of a cool story. But I love short stories. I love folk stories. And I was going to read some of my dad's writings, but I didn't. And some of my grandfather's writings, and I haven't. So I'm going to read you a short story. It's very small. A short story from this book. It's written by Prince Helfrich. Wouldn't you like going through the world with a name like Prince? You either be royalty or a puppy dog. This story is called Shorty and the Bear. Are you ready? Way back in the summer of 1927, I was working on a trail crew in the Forest Service, and we were packing back on the Olali Trail. Our job was to clear the trail of all fallen trees from the previous winter and repair the telephone lines. We had spent several days on the trail from McKenzie Bridge to Bear Flat, and had camped that evening at the edge of a little meadow. The horses were hobbled and turned out to feed, and we made our night's camp under some big trees. Packs were laying all around on the ground, and each man selected his place to spread his blankets. We didn't have sleeping bags in those days. Along in the middle of the night, I was awakened by some unusual noise. The moonlight was filtering down through the trees, and each man could be seen rolled up tightly in his blanket. My boys are home. Suddenly, out of the shadows, appeared a little bear. He couldn't have been bigger than a cocker spaniel. He sniffed around the camp a little, picking up a morsel of food here and there. Then he walked by the packer's bed. The packer was a small, bald-headed man called Shorty, and as he lay sleeping, his very bald head was quite obvious sticking out of his blanket roll. The little bear walked up to Shorty and actually licked his bald head. Shorty later said the bear's tongue felt like sandpaper. With a start, he awakened and saw the bear standing there. He gave one awful yell and lit a running. This, of course, aroused the entire camp. When the flashlights were turned on, there sat Shorty, not 3 feet from the ground, but hugging a big fir tree for dear life. Later, he said that he was positive he was 30 or 40 feet up in that tree. That tree saved a man's life, and we hope the loggers never cut it. Good story, huh? I'm out. All right. God bless you.